G'day, Steve from Steve M Outdoors, and today a bit of a change of pace. Today I'm going to be discussing my end of fishing season process from all my equipment, rods, line, reels, lures. Although in the rest of North America there's still a lot of fishing to be done, up here in northern Canada we're going to be seeing snow pretty soon. So this is about the time of the year I usually call it and invest my time more in hunting and in shooting. So anyway, we're going to start rods. This is pretty easy. Nothing fancy here. I take the reels off each of my rods and then I clean the rods themselves. Now I know a lot of people are saying, why would you clean rods? Pretty easy. You wouldn't be amazed as to how dirty that a rod can get. And yes, I know the jokes write themselves with that. I inspect each guide to make sure that there are no problems with the guide inserts, and I have found occasionally that they do pop out, so you do want to make sure, because if the line just runs through the metal part, there's a pretty good chance that it's going to get abraded over time, and just when you're trying to land that 8-pound largemouth, that's when the line will snap. So always make sure to check all your guide inserts. Finally, and this isn't a secret, a lot of people do this, but it might sound weird to you if you've heard this for the first time. I tend to spray a little bit of furniture polish on a rag, and I just give it a wipe down. That does one of two things. One, it cleans off any dirt that you can't see, and two, it gives them a little bit of protection against dirt in the future. And three, lemony fresh. So, oh, before I forget, the handles. A lot of people overlook cleaning the handles. You can do one thing that I do, and I find that it works, and this one, I don't know if you can see it, but it actually needs a little bit of cleaning. If you've got cork handles, as this particular bait casting rod does, you can either use a little bit of warm water and soap, or you can use one of the Mr. Clean Magic Erasers. Those do tremendous work in cleaning cork. For EVA handles, the black kind of rubbery ones, exact same thing. You can either use warm water and soap or the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. And I think the Mr. Cleans are like $4 or $5 for 5 of them. So they'll last you a while if that's all you're going to use them for. But actually they also do a good job cleaning up little messes and all that stuff. So that's basic rod maintenance. Not much to it. Line. I tend to use braided line on every setup except with the exception of a few like jerk baits and spinner baits. Then I'll tend to use mono or fluorocarbon. But on a lot of them I use a main line of braid and then a leader, and that leader could be mono, poly, fluoro, whatever the technique calls for. So I tend not to actually remove the line from my reel. I tend to stick with the braid that I've got on there, and it could last for a couple years, and once you've worn out the side that typically you see, you can just reverse it and use the other side. It's still good. I mean, it's buried under there, it's never been touched, right? So I'll clean that off. What I do though is I tend to remove the leader that I put on there, because that does tend to get the most abraded, particularly if you're running over vegetation or underground structure, cover, whatever it may be. I do check for backlashes. Sometimes when you're out on the water and you get a backlash and it's just too complicated to clear, you just reel in your line, the backlash gets covered up, you don't notice, and then if you don't remember to clear it off, the next time you're out, throw your line and boom, this got this huge backlash and you have no idea where it came from. That actually happened to me once. I had a backlash during one tournament, reeled it up, brought it home, forgot to remove the backlash, went out for a tournament the following weekend, and wouldn't you know it, backlash. So I always check now, constantly. Reels, well, now that we're on to reels, there are some people who disassemble their reels top to bottom, nuts and everything, give it the old oil, grease, lube treatment, all that stuff. I'm not one of them, mostly because I got fingers made out of sausages. I'll never get this thing back together again. If you've ever seen a parts blowout for a modern reel, whether it's a bait casting reel or open-faced reel, there's like 6 trillion parts. Now, if you can do that, you feel comfortable doing that, knock yourself out. I'm not. If you really want it done and you can't do it yourself, there are services out there that you can send the reels to, and they'll condition it for you. They'll do everything for you. I'm not that guy. So what I do is basically I just give the reel itself a light cleaning. You know, clean off any of the dirt and dried vegetation and whatever else that gets caught on this while you're fishing. And I give the worm gear, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but the worm gear is that little bit right there that runs along the length, just behind or underneath the line guide. I give that a very light oiling, just so that the line guide running across it has, you know, a little bit of lubrication. Not a lot though. You don't ever want to lubricate too much. You don't want oil dripping off of this. There's also some other points for open-faced reels. I'll lube where the handle joins and some other things. Just a little bit, not too much. And that's really about it. After the rod and reel are disassembled and cleaned and I'm satisfied with the line, what I do tend to do is I back off the tension, spool tension right here, and also back off the drag. No reason to store it long term, and for us up here, long term is 6 months between when the season kind of closes and when it opens again for soft water fishing, as some people like to call it. So I tend to back everything off. And then, of course, once you do your I'm getting ready to go fishing in the spring, then you of course tighten everything back up again. Once I'm done, it goes back on the reel. I put a rod glove on, a reel glove. I'm done. The rod and reel are done. Tackle. This is probably the least exciting, most boring part of end of season maintenance. I've got hundreds of lures spread out in 3 tackle bags. One for the back of the Jeep, one my dedicated tournament bag, and also a fly fishing bag. So what I do is I check the hooks, and here's a, what is this, deer hair jig, whatever. I check each single hook, and if it's not surgically sharp, and by that I mean you stick it into your finger lightly, and it doesn't stick, then it needs a sharpening. So if you've got a lure with 3 treble hooks, you've got 9 points that you're testing. If you've got several hundred lures, that means you're probably pricking your finger at least 1,000 times. So at the end of this, your fingertips may be a raw mess, but you need to make sure that your hook points are sharp, because when you set that hook, let's say particularly for bass, they got hard mouths, you got to drive that hook home. Dull hooks don't tend to set as well. Now, pro tip, use a Dremel with one of those fine kind of sandpapery ends. I'm not sure what the hell they're called, polishing tool, whatever. And that way you can sharpen a pile of them without using one of the files. Depends on how many I have to do. Usually I'll use the Dremel. I also go through all my tackle bags, make sure there isn't anything I need to replace, like hooks on lures, replenish supplies like soft plastics. I tend to go through a pile of Senkos and other soft plastics like that, because I do tend to fish finesse a lot, so you want to make sure. And that's really about it. There's no reason to overthink this. I know a lot of guys get completely obsessed by making sure that all their tackle is 100% perfect and super organized. That's up to you. I tend not to. I just want to make sure everything is in good functioning order, everything is where it's supposed to be, and everything is working. That's basically about it. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Feel free to like and share this video if you found anything of any use in here. Follow SMO on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe to this channel if you like. All the links are below. At any rate, have a great day.